think about community and I think about support and I think about building that. And, I know a lot of times we talk about, and this podcast episode is going to be for, really hear me out, like listen to what I'm saying. Because I think a lot of times people are quick to result this in like bitterness. And, for me, I think it's just nothing more than expression. I have a huge problem with people who go so hard for like strangers' businesses and like strangers' things, right? Like whatever it is that the next person all the way over here is building. But they struggle to support the people around them. I think it's weird. And inevitably, not everything is for everybody. I think that for some people, it's like they may not just like what you're doing. You know what I mean? And like, that's okay, rightfully so. They may think it's trash. They may not, you know what I mean? But I just think that like, we really do have to question our own psychology as to why is it that we go so hard for people we do not know. You know what I mean? But we struggle to support those who are around us, even if it's just our friend. Like, okay, maybe we may not like this thing that they're doing, or maybe we may not like a designer, maybe we may, you know what I mean? But if it's not inherently evil, like why do we struggle to support them? And I think this is the thing that I question it, right? Because it's like, we do this, but then it's like we get upset when people are like, oh, they left their day ones, they changed up, they switched up, And I don't think that this is a matter of like begging anybody to support you, because one thing about me, I am the little engine that could, and we're coulding. You know what I mean? Like the little engine is coulding. We're doing it. Okay. So this doesn't really come from a space of like pity party. Obviously, like who cares who's not supporting you? Like you got to get it done anyway. Like, and we're going to do that anyway. But I just think that when you start talking about just like culture today, you know what I mean? And seeing how people really go hard for like people who are like strangers, for other people's brands, for, you know what I mean? Like, I just think it's weird. I think it's weird. I do. And it's like, what is that? Like, do we need something to aspire to? You know what I mean? And was aspiration something that could never exist in proximity, because would that just result in envy? Are we more so envious rather than inspired by the people who can do great things, who are, next to us, right? Do we need aspiration? You know what I mean? Because to aspire, it's like, okay, I could get there, but I'm not really living it. You know what I mean? But if the person next to me is inspiring, I can't coexist in this space because I'm going to be envious. You know what I mean? Like, what is that? Like, and I think that is something that I'm always just so confused, and it's so perplexing to me because I don't understand it. I really don't understand it. Like I just really don't get it. It's like I said, I think it's even if, and I'm not talking about like people who, I'm not saying you have to go out your way to support every brand and you know what I mean? I'm talking about people who you consider like your friends, and I think to me at this point in my life, like when you talk about a friend, I would say that like, I personally wouldn't consider anybody a friend who doesn't support what I'm doing and what I'm about. You know what I mean? Like someone who doesn't support me and like the art that I create and the things that I make. And like, I wouldn't consider that person to be a friend, like I maybe an acquaintance, you know what I mean? But I think in terms of like a friend, I wouldn't consider that to be a friend, And so I think overall, my genuine question is just like, what is it with some people that make them go out their way to support strangers, but inadvertently cannot support their friends? Like, I just think it's so weird how you can have 3 friends. Everybody wants to do fashion. Everybody wants, you know what I mean? And instead of like being able to like work together to build the thing, to help everybody reach their individual goals, it becomes this very hard thing of like doing this by yourself. It becomes this solo journey, which ultimately results in, you know what I mean? Like people are getting left behind, the day ones are not sticking with the day ones because it's like, how dare you? You know what I mean? Like, why should I? Everybody's got a chip on their shoulder moving forward instead of it just being like, and I wonder, what is it about aspiration and success that creates, I don't want to say envy, but what is it about that creates disconnection? You know, is it, like I said, do we need something to aspire to? And is it like a personality trait for some people? Like, do some people just need something to aspire to that they can't, you know, support those that are around them? Like, do they just need to be on the outside looking in because, you know, maybe they refuse to do the work themselves? Or, you know, what is that type of psychology? Like, what type of mindset is that? I think it's so weird, you know? And I think one of the biggest things I found, especially like within the Black community and just being a Black person, it's like, it's really this thing where it's like everybody wants to be like head honcho, you know? And I think there's nothing inherently wrong with like wanting to be a leader. But I think the problem is that everybody's not a leader. You know what I mean? Everybody's not going to be able to be on the forefront. And it's okay. Like, that doesn't mean that anybody is less valuable. You know, I think for a lot of us, because we don't really have an understanding of, you know, slavery and how that really shows up, you know, like white supremacy and our work hierarchies and managerial roles and things like that. We don't realize how we unintentionally perpetuate those type of attitudes, behaviors, and stereotypes against one another when we find ourselves in positions of authority. You know, we don't realize how when we find ourselves in positions of authority, you know what I mean, that we start to take on the role of like white supremacy, you know what I mean? And we start to become very dictative and things like that. And like, very dogmatic, and you know, we don't realize how we start moving like that. And I think for a lot of people, it's like you kind of find yourself seeing that person in that space, even if they're not in that space, even if they're not, you know, acting out, you know, of that type of hierarchy. It's like you find yourself looking at them as if they were, you know. And it's like, instead of everybody just kind of being like, look, I'm good at this, I'm gonna stay in my lane, I'm gonna check back with you on Monday, I'm gonna have to, you know what I mean, I'm gonna have the designs, I'm gonna have the copywriting, whatever it is, like I'm gonna have the marketing. That's what it is. You know what I mean? Instead of it being that, like, okay, let's just work our roles. Everyone's like, well, I want to be the CEO. But it's like, okay, but do you know how to make the connections? Do you know how to manage anything? Like, do you know how to, you know what I mean? Like, are you good with structure? Like, no, you may be someone who's more so good with like the planning and like presentation. I know for me, I'm really good with like, you know, presentation and so forth. You know, your girl was making PowerPoints at the age of like 11. Don't play with it. You know what I mean? But no, seriously, it's just like, I think for us, the problem is, instead of building something that we can all be proud of with our skills, you know, for a lot of African Americans who don't really come into that consciousness. And I say this all the time because I believe that for Black people, we could all get on the same page if Black people learn about their history, because too often we're too busy fighting one another. You know what I mean? We're still in that Willie Lynch of like, I'm against you. And you don't realize it. It's like, you have to, if every Black person understood their history, and this is why they go so hard to ban our history. Because when you get on the same page with your brothers and sisters, when you get on the same page with your man, and everybody has an understanding as listen, it's like when you walk into a room, like just picture this. You walk into a room, right? Everybody's in the room, and it's like everybody in this room is on the same page. Everybody understands why we're here, what we came to do, what the agenda is. Like, everybody understands why we're here. There's a lot more harmony. You know what I mean? Things can get done. We can move forward versus sitting here telling people why we're here. You got people raising up their hands, shouting back, arguing with you when you're trying to tell them why we're here having this meeting today. And now the meeting is resulting in chaos. People are walking out. People are frustrated. Like, nothing got done. You know what I mean? Versus like, everybody understands why we're here and what can we do to go move forward. And like, I believe that this is why people, first of all, understand this too about history. People are going to pick different parts of history. I think history is one of those things that is so long, and it's something that is, something that is intentionally withheld, that I don't think that you can really, I don't really think you can like cherry pick history. I think if you're going to be a historian, read all of it. You know what I mean? Like, read all of it. Like, you can't just be like, oh, Black men were abusing Black women in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. Like, you know what I mean? Or the 30s. Like, you got to look at all of it. Like, you can't just be like, this was what it was and what it is. You know what I mean? And then I think in regards to African American culture, I just want so many of us to understand that like slavery really is the byproduct of our dysfunction today. You know what I mean? Slavery, what we've gone through, what our ancestors have endured, what we've been deprived of, the systems, the psychologies, and all the things that have been put in place are a direct result of where we are today. So you have to understand, this division is not because I genuinely hate you or not because you genuinely hate me. You know what I mean? We were literally born and bred and cultivated that way. Like, So you have to understand that. And that type of mentality, it's something that needs to persist because it's lucrative. You know what I mean? It's just something that, hey, it's like racism, but it's embedded in the laws. You know what I mean? In the psychologies of so many people. So it's like, yeah, when you have a lot of people who are without that knowledge, it's going to be really hard for us to get on the same page. You know what I mean? Like, and you talk about like trust and things like that. I mean, it's like, you can tell, like, I think you have to have a conversation with the person, but I don't know. I just think that when nobody's aware of what is going on and why we're here in this meeting space, then yeah, this is going to be chaotic, right? And we know that with our ancestors, things got done because people stuck together, okay? Like they got done, you know what I mean? Because we were all on one page. We were sure of the collective. We were aware of what we were here for, what we were trying to do. There was one goal, you know what I mean? And because that goal is it's no longer visible, you know what I mean? This is why we have all the chaos and the chatter. So yeah, I think that will be a good place to start. But I think outside of that, it's more so just realizing that everybody has a different skill set. Everybody has a different gift to bring to this. And I think, and you talk about ego, I don't really know if it's as simplistic as ego, because I think that there's some other psychology that's deeply embedded into why we can't seem to support one another. I don't think that it's just ego, I think that it's way more than that. You know what I mean? Like, it's way more than just like ego. And you start talking about fear, and you start talking about, abuse and being taken advantage of and all these different things. It's a lot really wrapped up in there. But I do think that if you can find yourself in a space where you can actually respect the people that are around you, I think you guys can actually build something. I think in business, you're going to take risk, inevitably. But I do think that the fear tactics and like feeling afraid of being taken advantage of, or feeling afraid of, whatever. I do think that hinders us. But yeah, this is just me kind of shining a light on that. I think it's weird. I think it's weird. I think instead of us being like, okay, this is where I'm good at, this is where you're good at, we can't seem to get that part together, So it's like we just find ourselves always looming in these like aspirational states instead of actually creating something that could benefit everybody. And I know these talks are very like, oh, we always talk about benefiting everybody. And I've actually met people who, are pretty shysty themselves, and they're not really trying to benefit everybody. It's more so like for the benefit of themselves. But I think when you find yourself in those spaces, right, let's just say, I'll end this podcast with saying, let's say you're considering, joining something or helping someone or building something or whatever the case may be. Well, you'll know if there's mutuality, you know what I mean? Like if you can get something out of this and vice versa, and the work is visible, right? This isn't a pyramid scheme. You're not going to have to, build somebody else's brand. It's like, no, there is a collaborative effort here. You have your role to play. I have my role to play. And without both roles functioning entirely, this train is not going to get it. We're not going to move. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think that's how you kind of have that, where it's like there's equality in the opportunity. And I think that's what a lot of people really want. Like even in terms of like marriage, I think people kind of feel that way, like without one or the other, like this has to be a complement. Like it has to be the missing piece of the puzzle. Because without that, it's not going to function. And I think when you have people who are under functioning, whatever the case may be, then obviously we're not going to move forward, So that's for anybody who's trying to build a team. I do think that, the more you build and create something, I do think that there are some people who could come along. I think I'm a firm believer in just kind of like, I say this all the time, but geography. I am, because I can't stress this enough. I just think that, back to what I said, I think people who have awareness, and I say this all the time because for me, I'm in a state where there's not really a lot of awareness in regards to like Black culture. Like, I'm where we migrated from the South. You know what I mean? We came here for better opportunities. So a lot of industrialization, a lot of separation, integration in some spaces, but a lot of segregation as well. So it's like, that's my history. That's the land in which I'm living in right now. So there's really not a lot of collective consciousness. Like, it's just not there, so I think that there's that. And then, so I always think that plays a huge role, and so, yeah, but I think in terms of building something, I do think it's hard when you have to go alone. I don't care what anybody says, you can do it, but just know it's going to take you a while. And I think for some people, they may find a sense of pride in that. I'm not really one of those people. I feel I'm very communal. But it's like, if you are someone who's like, yeah, then do you, but for me, I felt like a lot of the things that I wanted to build for my life, and the things that I wanted to come see come into fruition were things that were not gonna be built by one person. You know what I mean? Like, sure, could we set the foundation? Sure, could we have the vision? Absolutely. But like that required other people. Like, there was no way I was building, you know what I mean, the things I wanted to build by just myself. You know, I had to be faithful and like, you know, trust that God was going to provide and like I would meet the right people. But yeah, I just think that, you know, I think too often we go at things with this attitude of like, I don't need nobody. And, you know, I have to build this thing for myself before other people come along. And it's not true. You know, I believe that one of the biggest lies of entrepreneurship is that it's a solo pursuit. Like, I think it's a lie. I don't care what anybody says. It is a complete and total utter lie. It is a lie. It is not true. Any entrepreneur has always had, it's not even a handout, right? They've had help. That's the realism of it. Like, it's not easy to build a business or to build anything by yourself. It's not impossible, but it's not easy. And I do believe that if you want to go, what they say, if you want to go far, what is the saying? Because let me actually say this right, because I really don't want to butcher this. Let me see. You want to go far. I'm actually Googling it. It's me, because I want to just get this right. Want to go. Oh, it is. Wow. This is so crazy. It says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. That's deep.